The blood on her hands would not wash away. No matter how hard Paige Dawson scrubbed under the cold water in the gas station bathroom somewhere between her old life and whatever came next, it was not her blood. That was the problem. That was why two federal marshals were waiting outside the restroom door, ready to drive her across 3 state lines to a town she had never heard of, with a name she would have to learn to answer to. Except they had decided she could keep Paige. Small mercies. She stared at her reflection in the scratched mirror. 26 years old, honey blonde hair that needed washing, green eyes that had seen too much in the past 72 hours. She looked like someone who had witnessed her boss execute 2 people in the warehouse behind his restaurant. She looked like someone who had run, because that was exactly what she was. Miss Dawson. The female marshal, Agent Chen, knocked gently. "We need to keep moving." Paige dried her hands on rough paper towels and opened the door. Agent Chen had kind eyes which somehow made everything worse. Kindness felt dangerous now. Kindness was what had made her stay working at Salvador's for 3 years, even when she noticed the strange deliveries, the men in expensive suits who came through the back entrance, the way her boss, Tony Salvador, would disappear for hours into the office with the soundproofed door. Kindness was what almost got her killed. The drive took 6 hours. Paige dozed in the backseat, waking intermittently to see flat farmland give way to rolling hills, then forest. When she opened her eyes for the last time, golden afternoon light slanted through pine trees, and they were driving down a main street that looked like it belonged on a postcard. Millbrook, Montana. Population 3,847. "It is perfect," Agent Chen said, and Paige could not tell if she was being ironic. "Small enough that strangers are noticed, which means Salvador's people will have trouble sending anyone to scope it out, but large enough that you will not be the only new person to arrive in a decade. There is a community college nearby, some tourism, people come and go." "What am I supposed to do here?" Paige asked. Her voice sounded hollow. "Live," Agent Chen said simply. "We have set you up with a job at the local library. You told us you liked books. There is a small house furnished. Some money to get you started. You check in with me every week." The house was a cottage, really, painted pale yellow with white trim. It sat on Maple Street, which was actually lined with maple trees, because apparently Millbrook was committed to truth in advertising. The inside smelled like lavender and old wood. There was a kitchen with blue tiles, a living room with a fireplace, 1 bedroom upstairs with sloped ceilings and a window that overlooked the backyard. The neighbor to your right is a leaner Finch, 78, retired teacher, Agent Chen said, reading from her notes. "She will definitely bring you casseroles. The house to your left has been empty for 2 months, but the owner is apparently coming back this week. Some businessman from Seattle who bought it as an investment property." Paige barely listened. She was looking at the bookshelf someone had stocked with paperbacks, the kitchen table with 4 chairs like she might have guests, the life that had been assembled for her by strangers who were trying to keep her alive. "You are going to be okay," Agent Chen said before she left. "I know it does not feel like it now, but you are brave, Miss Dawson. You did the right thing." Paige wanted to ask why doing the right thing felt so much like dying. She unpacked the single suitcase of belongings that had been gathered from her apartment. 3 days ago, she had a life in Portland. She had friends, a favorite coffee shop, a cat named Hemingway who was now living with her best friend Rachel. She had a mother in Spokane who thought she had taken a sudden job opportunity in Montana and could not be contacted for a while. Now she had a cottage in Millbrook and a court date in 6 months when she would testify against Tony Salvador, who ran the most powerful organized crime family in the Pacific Northwest. That first night, Paige lay in the unfamiliar bed and did not sleep. She listened to the sounds of a town that actually got quiet at night, nothing like the constant hum of the city. An owl hooted somewhere close. Wind moved through the trees. She heard every sound as a potential threat, every creak as someone coming for her. At dawn, she finally dozed off. She woke 3 hours later to the sound of a truck pulling into the driveway next door. Paige went to the window, staying back far enough that she could look out without being seen. The truck was expensive, a black Ford F-250 that looked new. A man climbed out, and even from this distance and this angle, Paige could tell he was not from around here either. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing jeans and a dark Henley that fit him like it had been tailored. His hair was dark, slightly too long, and he moved with the kind of easy confidence that came from never having to worry about much. He pulled boxes from the truck bed like they weighed nothing. Eleanor Finch appeared almost immediately, because of course she did, bustling across her lawn with a Tupperware container. Paige could not hear the conversation, but she watched the man smile politely, accept the offering, and say something that made Eleanor laugh. He had a good smile, even if it did not quite reach his eyes. Then he looked up directly at Paige's window. She jerked back, heart hammering. There was no way he could have seen her. She had been careful, but the look had been so direct, so deliberate. Stop being paranoid, she told herself. He probably just noticed movement, or he was looking at something else entirely. She forced herself to shower and dress. The library job started tomorrow. Today was supposed to be for settling in, whatever that meant. She walked to the small downtown, memorizing the route. There was a grocery store called Millbrook Market, a hardware store, a diner called Rosie's, a coffee shop named Mountain Brew. Normal places, safe places. She bought groceries. The cashier, a woman with a name tag that said Debbie, smiled at her and asked if she was new in town. Just moved in yesterday, Paige said, using the story she had practiced. I am starting at the library. Oh, how wonderful. We love our library. Gladys is retiring. You must be her replacement. She has been there 30 years, can you imagine? Debbie rang up the groceries without pausing for breath. Where are you from? Idaho, Paige said. The lie tasted metallic. Small town, even smaller than this. Well, you will love it here. Everyone does. That will be $43.50. When Paige walked back home, arms full of grocery bags, she saw the man from next door checking his mailbox. Up close, he was even more striking. Late 20s or early 30s, with a strong jaw and dark eyes that had shadows under them like he did not sleep much either. There was a small scar through his left eyebrow. Hi, he said, and his voice was deep, a little rough. You are the new neighbor. It was not a question. Paige shifted the grocery bags. Paige Dawson, Yates Lawson. He did not offer his hand, which she appreciated since hers were full. Just moved back in yesterday. Well, not back in. First time living here. I bought the place a while ago, but I have been in Seattle. Eleanor mentioned someone was coming. She had not, but it seemed like something to say. Eleanor mentions everything. But he said it with a hint of warmth, not irritation. Need help with those bags? I am fine, thank you. He nodded, studying her with an intensity that made her want to look away. She did not. She had learned that looking away made you seem weak, made you a target. Well, welcome to Millbrook, Yates said finally. It is quiet, but I guess that is the point. There was something in the way he said it that made Paige wonder what he was running from, but she just smiled, nodded, and walked to her door. That night she saw lights on in his house. Saw his shadow moving past the windows. When she checked in with Agent Chen by phone, she mentioned the neighbor. Yates Lawson, Agent Chen said, and Paige could hear typing. We ran background checks on everyone on your street. He is clean. Made his money in acquisitions, some kind of investment firm. Semi-retired at 31, probably burned out. He does not seem like the small-town type, Paige said. Neither do you, Miss Dawson. That is the beauty of witness protection. You get to become whoever you need to be. The library was a 2-story brick building on Center Street, with tall windows and the kind of worn wooden floors that creaked pleasantly when you walked. Gladys, the retiring librarian, was a plump woman with reading glasses on a beaded chain and an encyclopedic knowledge of every book in the building. "I am so glad you are here," she said, showing Paige around. "I was worried they would close the library when I left. Towns this size, they always think libraries are expendable, but you seem like a smart girl. You will keep it alive." Paige learned the circulation system, the cataloging method, where the children's section was, and how story time worked on Saturdays. She learned that Mrs. Patterson came in every Tuesday for romance novels, that Ben Ortiz, the high school history teacher, was always looking for primary sources, that there was a book club that met monthly and was very serious about their selections. It was easy work, quiet work. The kind where she could lose herself in the routine and almost forget why she was here. Almost. She had been in Millbrook for 5 days when Yates Lawson walked into the library. He looked out of place among the stacks, too big and too expensive. He wore a dark blue button-down with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms that suggested he did something more physical than sit behind a desk all day. He browsed the history section, pulled out a book on World War II naval battles, and brought it to the desk. "Paige," he said, like he had been thinking about her name. "Yates." She scanned the book, issued him a library card. "I did not take you for a history reader. My grandfather was in the Navy. I have been meaning to learn more about what he went through." He took the card, slipped it into his wallet. "How are you settling in?" "Fine. Everyone is very friendly." "That can be overwhelming in itself." He said it like he understood. "If you ever need anything, I am next door. I work from home mostly, so I am around." "What do you do?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. "Consulting, acquisitions, helping companies figure out what they are worth." He said it dismissively like it bored him. Nothing exciting. But there was something in his eyes, some weight that suggested his work was more complicated than he was letting on. Paige knew the look. She had seen it in her own mirror. "Well, thanks," she said. "I should be fine, but I appreciate it." He nodded and left, and Paige watched him go, wondering why a man who made his money in high-stakes acquisitions was hiding out in a town of fewer than 4,000 people. A week later, Eleanor Finch invited both of them to dinner. "I will not take no for an answer," Eleanor said, standing on Paige's doorstep with the determination of someone who had taught 7th-grade English for 40 years. "You have both been here nearly 2 weeks, and I have barely seen you. Sunday, 6 o'clock. I am making pot roast." Sunday came. Paige stood on Eleanor's porch at 5:58, holding a bottle of wine from the grocery store and feeling like she was about to face a firing squad. The door opened, and Yates was there, also holding wine. "Hostage too?" he asked with the faintest smile. "Apparently, resistance is futile." Eleanor's house smelled like rosemary and garlic. The dining room table was set with actual china, and there were fresh flowers in a vase. She sat them across from each other and proceeded to orchestrate the conversation like a conductor. "Paige is from Idaho," Eleanor announced. "Where exactly, dear?" Coeur d'Alene, Paige said, sticking to her script. "Small town outside of it, really. You would not have heard of it." "And you, Yates?" "Seattle, you said." "Originally from Colorado," Yates said. "But I have been in Seattle for almost 10 years. Needed a change of pace." "Millbrook will certainly give you that," Eleanor said with satisfaction. Now, what made you two young people choose our little town? The job, Paige almost said. The federal marshals who told me I did not have a choice. I wanted somewhere quieter, she said instead. I have always loved libraries, and when I saw the position open, it seemed perfect. And I needed space to think, Yates added. I have been working non-stop since I was 22. Time to figure out what comes next. The dinner was delicious, and Eleanor was charming, but Paige felt Yates watching her throughout the meal, not in a threatening way, more like he was trying to solve a puzzle and she was the missing piece. After dinner, they walked out together, Eleanor waving from her porch. She means well, Yates said, I know. Paige breathed in the cool night air. The sky was dark out here, full of stars you never saw in the city. It is nice, actually, feeling like someone cares. They reached the property line between their houses. Yates stopped, hands in his pockets. Can I ask you something? His voice was careful. And you can tell me to mind my own business. Paige tensed. Okay. Why do you look over your shoulder every time you leave your house? Her heart kicked. I do not. You do. You check the street before you walk to your car. You always sit facing the door at the coffee shop. You never talk about your family or your past. He held up a hand. I am not judging. I am just saying I recognize it, because I do the same things. Paige stared at him. In the porch light, his face was half in shadow, but his expression was open. Honest. Bad relationship, she said finally. It was part of her cover story. Ex-boyfriend who did not handle the breakup well. I needed distance. Yates nodded slowly. That why you came here alone, no friends visiting, no family? It is complicated. It usually is. He turned toward his house, then stopped. For what it is worth, Paige, I think you are safe here, and if you ever need anything at all, I am next door. He went inside before she could respond. That night, Paige lay awake thinking about the way he had looked at her, like he saw straight through her lies and did not care. Like he had his own secrets and understood the weight of them. The next morning, she woke to the sound of chopping wood. She looked out her window and saw Yates in his backyard, splitting logs with an axe. He had taken off his shirt despite the October chill, and she could see the play of muscles across his back and shoulders, the precise violence of each swing. There was something almost meditative about the way he worked, like he was trying to exhaust himself into peace. Paige made coffee and tried not to watch. Failed. When he finally stopped, he looked up at her window again. This time she did not hide. He raised a hand in greeting. She lifted her coffee mug in response. This became their routine. She would see him in the mornings, working in his yard or going for runs that lasted hours. He would see her leave for the library, come home with groceries, sit on her porch reading in the evenings. They would wave. Sometimes they would talk, brief conversations about the weather or recommendations for the hardware store, or whether the diner's pie was as good as advertised. 3 weeks into her new life, Paige started to relax. Not completely. She still checked in with Agent Chen every Wednesday. She still avoided giving real answers about her past, but Millbrook was growing on her. The library patrons learned her name. She joined the book club. She found a hiking trail that wound up into the mountains, where the silence was so complete it felt sacred. And then Ben Ortiz asked her out. He was nice, the history teacher, funny and smart with an easy smile. He came into the library twice a week, and they had started chatting about books, about the town, about nothing in particular. When he asked if she wanted to get dinner at Rosie's diner, Paige said yes because it seemed like something a normal person would do. The date was fine. Ben was a perfect gentleman. He told stories about his students, asked about her favorite books, paid for dinner without making a production of it. He walked her home and did not try to kiss her, just said he had a great time and hoped they could do it again. Absolutely, Paige said, meaning it. But when she went inside, she felt hollow. The next morning, Yates was sitting on his porch steps when she left for work. "Morning," he said. "Morning. Saw you had a date last night." He said it casually, but there was tension in his shoulders. Paige stopped. "Were you watching?" "No, Eleanor told me. She tells me everything, remember?" He stood up, walked to the edge of his porch. "Ben is a good guy, teaches my neighbor's kid." "He is nice," Paige agreed. "Nice." Yates repeated the word like it tasted bad, then he shook his head. "Sorry, that was out of line, your business." "Yates, I should get back to work. Have a good day, Paige." He went inside, and she stood there feeling like something important had just happened, but she could not name what. Ben asked her out again. And again. By the fourth date, he kissed her goodnight, soft and sweet. Paige kissed him back and felt nothing but guilt, because all she could think about was the way Yates had looked when he said nice. She stopped seeing Yates in the mornings. He was gone, his truck missing from the driveway. She told herself it was a coincidence. He had work in Seattle, or he was traveling, or he was simply avoiding the neighbor who was clearly not interested. A week passed. Then two. "Have you seen Yates lately?" Eleanor asked one afternoon, catching Paige on her way home. "He has not been around. I am getting worried." "I am sure he is fine," Paige said. "Probably just busy with work." But she was worried too, though she had no right to be. He came back on a Tuesday night. Paige heard his truck pull in around 11. She was on her couch, pretending to read, and she heard his door slam, heard his footsteps heavy on his porch. She told herself to stay inside. She made it 5 minutes. Yates answered on the second knock. He looked terrible, exhausted and wrung out, like he had not slept in days. There was a cut healing on his jaw. "Paige." He said her name like a question. "Where have you been?" "Seattle, work thing." "What happened to your face?" Walked into a door. He saw her expression. "I am fine, really." "You do not look fine," he laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Neither do you, if we are being honest. You look like someone going through the motions. How is Ben?" "He is nice." There is that word again. Yates leaned against the door frame, and she could see the exhaustion in every line of his body. "Do you love him?" "I barely know him." That was not the question. Paige felt something crack open inside her chest. "Why do you care?" "Because I have been trying really hard not to," Yates said quietly. "I came to Millbrook to get away from complications, to figure out my life without distractions. And then you moved in next door, and you look at me like you see right through all my bullshit, and I cannot stop thinking about you. So yes, Paige, I care." The world narrowed to the space between them, close enough to touch, far enough to retreat. "I do not know what to say," Paige whispered. "Say you do not feel it too, and I will leave you alone. I will be the polite neighbor who waves from his driveway. You can date Ben and live your quiet life, and I will stay out of your way." She should say it. Should protect herself, protect him, protect the fragile safety she had built here. "I feel it," she said instead. Yates closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were blazing. "Then break up with Ben, because I do not share and I do not do casual. If we do this, I need to know you are all in. I barely know you. So get to know me. I have time. I have patience. But I need you to choose, Paige." She left without answering, walked back to her house on shaking legs, and sat in her dark living room trying to breathe. She had come here to disappear, to stay safe. Getting involved with Yates was the opposite of safe. He was intense and complicated, and he made her feel things she had been trying to bury since Portland. But God, she wanted him. The next day she told Ben she could not see him anymore. He took it gracefully, said he understood, and she felt like the worst person in the world. Ben was safe. Ben was easy. Ben would never make her feel like she was on fire from the inside out. That evening she knocked on Yates's door again. He opened it, and she saw the hope in his eyes, quickly covered. "I ended it with Ben," she said. I do not know what I am doing. I do not know if this is a good idea, but I want to try. Yates stepped back, letting her inside. His house was neat, sparsely furnished, with a laptop and papers spread across the dining table. It looked like a place someone was camping in, not living. Tell me something true, he said. Just one thing. Paige thought about all the lies she had told, all the truth she was not allowed to share. I am afraid, she said finally, all the time, of everything. Me too. He reached for her hand, his palm warm and calloused. I am afraid I will mess this up. I am afraid you will find out who I really am and run. I am afraid I am not good enough for you. Who are you really? Let me take you to dinner, and I will tell you. They went to a restaurant one town over, a small Italian place with candles and red tablecloths. Yates ordered wine and pasta, and they talked. Really talked, for the first time. He told her about growing up in Denver, the son of a single mother who worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat. About putting himself through college, getting an MBA, landing a job at an investment firm where his talent for seeing value in failing companies made him rich before he was 30. I was good at it, he said. Too good. I helped engineer hostile takeovers, broke up companies, fired thousands of people, all perfectly legal, all absolutely ruthless. And then one day I woke up and realized I had become the kind of man I used to hate. So you left, Paige said. Not immediately. I had obligations, contracts. But I started planning my exit. Bought the house in Millbrook 2 years ago, telling myself it was an investment. Really, it was an escape hatch. He looked at her. I made my last deal 3 months ago. It was ugly, the kind where everyone loses except me. After that, I came here and told my partners I was done. And they let you go. I made them very rich. They did not have much choice. But there was something guarded in his expression, like he was not telling her everything. Paige understood. She was not telling him everything either. What about you? Yates asked. What are you running from? I told you, bad relationship. I do not think that is all of it. She met his eyes. It is all I can tell you right now. To her surprise, he nodded. Okay, when you can tell me the rest, I will listen. Until then, we start from here. They drove back to Millbrook with the windows down, cool November air rushing through the truck. At her door, Yates walked her up the porch steps. Can I kiss you? He asked. In answer, Paige rose on her toes and kissed him first. It was nothing like kissing Ben. This was heat and hunger, his hands cupping her face, her fingers curling into his shirt. This was months of tension snapping, the whole world falling away until there was just them. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Yates rested his forehead against hers. I am in trouble, he murmured. Me too. After that, they were inseparable. They had breakfast together, Yates cooking eggs and bacon in her kitchen while she made coffee. They hiked the mountain trails, his hand warm in hers. They read together in the evenings, comfortable silence broken only by the rustle of pages. Paige learned that Yates was methodical and protective, that he remembered everything she said, that he had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard. She learned that he was haunted by the work he had done, that he was trying to figure out how to use his money for good instead of profit. I have been thinking about starting a foundation, he said one night, lying on her couch with his head in her lap. Helping small businesses, maybe. The kind of places I used to destroy. It seems like the least I could do. That is a good idea, Paige said, running her fingers through his hair. What about you? What do you want after all this? After witness protection ends, she thought. After the trial. After I testify and hopefully Tony Salvator goes to prison for the rest of his life. I do not know, she said. I never let myself think that far ahead. Think about it now, with me. She looked down at him, this man who had walked into her life at the worst possible time and made her feel like maybe she could have a future after all. "I want to feel safe," she said quietly. "I want to stop looking over my shoulder. I want to wake up in the morning and not be afraid." Yates sat up, taking her hands. "I will keep you safe, whatever it takes." He did not know what he was promising, could not know, but Paige let herself believe it anyway. In December, the snow came. Millbrook transformed into a Christmas card, all white drifts and twinkling lights. Yates helped Paige decorate her house, stringing lights around the porch while she hung a wreath on the door. They went to the town tree lighting, drinking hot chocolate and watching children's faces glow in the reflected light. "I have never had this," Yates said, pulling her close against the cold. "What? Normalcy, community, someone to come home to." He kissed the top of her head. "Thank you for giving this to me." "You gave it to me too," Paige said, and meant it. She checked in with Agent Chen every week, and every week she did not mention Yates. It felt like a betrayal, keeping him secret. But she was afraid that if she told the marshals about him, they would make her end it. They would say he was a complication, a risk. They would remind her that she was only here temporarily, that after the trial she might have to relocate again. She could not bear the thought of losing him. On Christmas Eve, Billionaire invited them both to dinner again. This time it felt easy, natural. They helped her cook, laughing in the kitchen while Christmas music played on an old radio. When Billionaire gave Paige a hug and told her she was like the granddaughter she never had, Paige had to excuse herself to cry in the bathroom. "You okay?" Yates asked when she came out, his eyes full of understanding. "I have not felt like I had family in a long time," she said. "You have me, and Billionaire apparently, and half this town from what I can tell." He pulled her into his arms. "You are not alone anymore, Paige." That night he stayed over for the first time. They made love slowly, carefully, learning each other in the dim light of her bedroom. Afterward, Yates held her close, his heart beat steady under her ear. "I love you," he said into the darkness. "I know it is fast. I know we are still figuring things out, but I love you and I needed you to know." Paige felt tears slide down her face. "I love you too," she did, desperately, completely, in a way that terrified her because she knew how fragile this happiness was. January came. The trial was in March. Paige started having nightmares, waking up gasping, seeing Tony Salvator's face, the gun in his hand, the bodies on the warehouse floor. Yates held her through the panic attacks, never asking questions she could not answer. "I am here," he would whisper. "You are safe, I have got you." During one of her check-ins, Agent Chen asked if she was ready to testify. "I have to be," Paige said. "You sound different, happier. Is everything okay there?" "Everything is fine." "Paige, if something has changed, nothing has changed. I will be ready for March." But everything had changed. She had fallen in love. She had built a life. The thought of leaving Millbrook, leaving Yates, felt like dying. In February, Yates asked her to move in with him. They were at his place, making dinner together when he said it. "I know your lease is month to month. I know this might be too fast, but I want you here. I want to wake up with you every morning. I want this to be our home, not just mine." Paige wanted to say yes, wanted it so badly it hurt, but she could not shake the feeling that she was building a house on a foundation of lies. "Can I think about it?" she asked. Something flickered in Yates's eyes, disappointment maybe, but he nodded. "Of course, take your time." That night she called Agent Chen outside the regular schedule. "What happens after the trial?" Paige asked. "Do I stay in Millbrook?" "That depends. If Salvator is convicted, the threat level drops significantly. You would still be in the system, but you would have more freedom. If he walks, or if his organization retaliates, we would have to move you again. And if I wanted to stay here regardless, then you would be doing it without protection. We cannot keep resources committed indefinitely. You know that." Paige closed her eyes. What if I did not testify? Then Tony Salvator walks free and 2 people died for nothing, and you will never be able to stop looking over your shoulder. Agent Chen's voice softened. What is going on, Paige? Talk to me. I met someone. Silence. Then, that is not advisable, I know, but it happened. And he is good, Agent Chen. He makes me feel like I have a life worth protecting. Then testify, put Salvator away, and then live that life. After they hung up, Paige sat in the dark for a long time. Then she went next door to Yates's house. He opened the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt, clearly getting ready for bed. Paige, everything okay? Yes, no, can I come in? They sat on his couch. Paige took a breath. I need to tell you something, she said. And after I tell you, you can decide if you still want me to move in, if you still want me at all. Yates's expression went very still. Okay. My name is Paige Dawson. That part is true, but I am not from Idaho. I am from Portland. And I am not in Millbrook because of a bad relationship. I am in witness protection. She told him everything. Tony Salvator, the murders she had witnessed, running to the police, the federal marshals who gave her a new life in Montana, the trial in March where she would have to face the man who wanted her dead. When she finished, her hands were shaking. Yates was quiet, his face unreadable. Say something, Paige whispered. You have been carrying this alone for months, he said finally. Living with this fear, not able to tell anyone. I am sorry I lied. I am not angry about the lie, Paige. I am angry that you have been terrified and I did not know, that I could not protect you. He took her hands. Thank you for telling me. I know what that cost. You still want me here. More than ever, you think I care that you are in witness protection. You think that changes how I feel, he cupped her face. I love you, all of you, including the parts you could not share. Relief flooded through her. I love you too. Then move in. Let me keep you safe. And in March I will go with you to testify. You will not do this alone. You do not have to, I want to. You are mine, Paige. I protect what is mine. She moved in the next week. It felt right, waking up in his bed, cooking in his kitchen, seeing her books on his shelves. They fell into an easy rhythm, like they had been doing this for years instead of months. But as March approached, Paige's anxiety spiked. She jumped at shadows. She checked the locks 3 times before bed. She had nightmares almost every night, waking up drenched in sweat. Yates held her through it all, steady and unshakable. 3 weeks, he would say. 3 weeks and it will be over. On March 1st, Agent Chen called. Trial starts in 2 weeks. We will pick you up on March 13th and drive you to Portland. You will be in a safe house until you testify, then we bring you straight back to Millbrook. Okay. Paige, I need you to be careful. Salvator's people know the trial is coming. They will be looking for any advantage. Stay alert. She promised she would. The next day, Yates went to Seattle for a meeting he could not reschedule. He did not want to go, but she convinced him she would be fine for 2 days. I will be here when you get back, she promised. He kissed her deeply. I will hold you to that. That afternoon, Paige was closing up the library when a man walked in. He was in his 50s, wearing an expensive suit with cold eyes and a politician's smile. We are just closing, Paige said automatically. This will only take a moment. He approached the desk. I am looking for a specific book, a first edition, very rare. I understand you might be able to help me locate it. Something in his tone made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. I can certainly try. What is the title? The witness, the man said, and Paige's blood went cold. I believe it is about someone who saw something they should not have, someone who made the mistake of talking to the police. She reached for the phone. The man moved faster, pulling a gun from his jacket and pointing it at her chest. I would not do that, he said pleasantly. Mr. Salvator sends his regards. He wanted me to deliver a message before the trial. He knows where you are, Paige. He knows everything about your new life. And unless you reconsider your testimony, you are going to disappear. You understand?" Paige could not breathe. "How did you find me?" "We have resources, friends in useful places. Did you really think you could hide forever?" He lowered the gun slightly. "You have until March 13th to change your mind. Refuse to testify and you get to keep this life. Take the stand and you will lose everything. Starting with that handsome neighbor of yours. Do not touch him. Then make the right choice." The man walked backward toward the door. "Remember, Paige, we are always watching." He disappeared into the street. Paige grabbed the phone with shaking hands and called Agent Chen. Then she called Yates. "They found me," she said when he answered. "Salvator's people. They were in the library. They threatened you. I am coming home right now." His voice was steel. "Lock yourself in the house. Do not open the door for anyone except Agent Chen." The next hours were a blur. 2 federal marshals arrived, securing the house. Agent Chen drove up from Boise, her expression grim. "We knew there was a leak," she said. "We have been trying to track it down for weeks. Someone in the Portland office has been feeding information to Salvator's organization. I am so sorry, Paige." "What do I do?" "Testify anyway. We will put you in protective custody until the trial, then relocate you after. New name, new state, fresh start." "What about Yates?" Agent Chen looked uncomfortable. "He cannot come with you. That is not how this works." "Then I am not going." "Paige, you heard me. I will testify. I will put Salvator away. But I am not losing Yates. I am not starting over again." Yates arrived after midnight, taking the stairs 2 at a time. He pulled Paige into his arms and she finally let herself cry. "I thought I lost you," she said against his chest. "Never, you will never lose me." He pulled back to look at her. "What do we do?" Over the next days they planned. Yates hired private security, former military contractors who set up a perimeter around the property. Agent Chen argued it was not necessary, but Yates overruled her. "She is testifying," he said flatly. "But she is doing it my way, with my protection. If your agency has a leak, I am not trusting them with her life." On March 13th, they drove to Portland in a convoy. 2 marshals, 3 of Yates's security team, Yates and Paige in the middle vehicle. It felt like a military operation. The safe house was a nondescript building in the suburbs. Paige spent 2 days there, reviewing her testimony with the prosecutors. They told her she was their star witness, that without her, Salvator would walk. "I will be there," she promised. Yates stayed close, never more than a room away. At night they lay together in the narrow bed, holding each other. "After this we go home," he said. "Back to Millbrook. Back to our life. Promise?" "I promise. Nothing is taking you away from me, not Salvator, not the marshals. Nothing." On March 16th, Paige took the stand. The courtroom was packed. She saw Tony Salvator at the defense table, his expression cold and venomous. She saw the families of the men he had killed. She saw Yates in the back row, his presence an anchor. She told the truth. All of it. What she had seen, what she had heard. The blood, the gunshots, Salvator's orders to dispose of the bodies. She did not waver, even when Salvator's lawyer tried to shake her story, tried to paint her as a liar, someone seeking attention. "I saw him kill 2 people," Paige said clearly. "And I will not let him get away with it." 3 days later, the jury came back, guilty on all counts. Life in prison without parole. When the verdict was read, Paige felt something inside her finally unclenched. It was over. Salvator was gone. She was free. Agent Chen found her outside the courthouse. "You did it. He will never hurt anyone again. What happens now? That is up to you. We can relocate you if you want, or you can go back to Millbrook and live your life. The threat level is minimal now. Salvator's organization is in shambles. Most of his lieutenants are cooperating to reduce their sentences. You should be safe." "Should be." There is never a guarantee. But it is as close as we can give you. Agent Chen smiled. Go home, Paige, be happy. You earned it. They drove back to Millbrook that night. Paige dozed on Yates's shoulder, exhausted and wrung out. When they pulled into the driveway, she felt something settle in her chest. Home. This was home. Millionaire met them at the door with tears and casseroles. Half the town had heard what happened somehow, and they rallied around her. The library staff brought flowers. The book club sent a card. Ben stopped by to say he was glad she was safe. You are stuck with us now, Millionaire said, hugging her tight. We take care of our own. That night, alone in their house, Yates pulled Paige into his arms. It is really over, she said, still not quite believing it. It is over. You are safe. We are together. He kissed her forehead. And I am never letting you go. Spring came to Millbrook. Paige went back to work at the library, falling into the rhythm of her life. Yates started his foundation, working with small businesses across Montana. They hiked and cooked and read together. They built a garden in the backyard. They adopted a dog, a rescue mutt named Scout, who followed them everywhere. In June, on a hike to their favorite overlook, Yates got down on one knee. Paige Dawson, you are the bravest person I have ever met. You are smart and kind, and you make me want to be better. I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy, keeping you safe, and loving you with everything I have. Will you marry me? Through tears. Paige said yes. They married in September, a small ceremony in Millionaire's backyard with the people they had come to think of as family. The book club came. The library staff. Ben brought his new girlfriend. Agent Chen even drove up from Boise, standing in the back with a proud smile. Paige wore a simple white dress. Yates wore a dark suit and could not stop smiling. When they said their vows, promising to love each other through whatever came, Paige meant every word. I was lost when I came here, she said, holding his hands. I was scared and alone, and you found me. You gave me a home. You gave me a life worth living. I love you, Yates Lawson. Today and always. You saved me too, Yates said, his voice rough with emotion. I was empty before you, just going through the motions. You made me feel again. You made me believe I could be more than my past. I will spend every day of my life earning your trust, protecting your heart, and making you happy. This is my promise. They kissed as husband and wife, and the small crowd erupted in applause. At the reception, Millionaire cried happily and told everyone she had known they were perfect for each other from the start. Paige danced with Yates under string lights, his arms around her waist, feeling more content than she had in years. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For choosing me. For staying, for everything. Always, Yates said and kissed her again. They honeymooned in Colorado, visiting the mountains where Yates grew up. He showed her his old neighborhood, the restaurant where his mother used to work, the park where he spent his childhood. They hiked and made love and talked about the future. I want kids, Paige said one morning, lying in his arms watching the sunrise. Not right away, but someday. How many? 2, maybe 3. Enough to fill that big house. I like that vision, Yates said, pulling her closer. A house full of little versions of you. And you, do not forget, you are part of this too. I would not want it any other way. They went back to Millbrook and settled into married life. Paige expanded the library's programming, starting a reading initiative for struggling students. Yates's foundation grew, helping dozens of small businesses get back on their feet. They became fixtures in the community, the couple who had moved to town around the same time and found each other. On their first anniversary, Paige found out she was pregnant. She took the test in the morning, hands shaking. When the 2 pink lines appeared, she sat on the bathroom floor and cried. Happy tears this time. Grateful tears. Yates was in the kitchen making breakfast. She walked downstairs and handed him the test without a word. He stared at it, looked at her, then pulled her into his arms so tight she could barely breathe. "We are having a baby," he said, wonder in his voice. "We are having a baby." They told Anew first, who cried and immediately started knitting. The news spread through Millbrook like wildfire. Suddenly everyone had advice, hand-me-down baby clothes, offers to help however they could. "This town," Paige said, overwhelmed by the generosity. "Our town," Yates corrected. "Our family." The pregnancy was smooth. Paige worked at the library until she was 8 months along, finally conceding to desk duty when her feet started swelling. Yates was attentive to the point of hovering, making sure she ate enough, slept enough, was not overdoing it. "I am pregnant, not dying," she told him after he insisted she sit down for the 3rd time in an hour. "I know, I just want to take care of you. You do. Every day." Their daughter was born on a clear April morning after 12 hours of labor. She came into the world screaming, with dark hair and her father's eyes. Yates held her with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. "She is perfect," he whispered. "You are perfect." They named her Rose after Yates's mother, Rose Dawson Lawson, their miracle, their joy. Bringing her home to Millbrook felt like completing a circle. Anew was waiting on the porch with a casserole and tears. The nursery was ready, painted pale yellow with a crib and rocking chair. Yates carried the car seat inside like he was transporting precious cargo. That first night, Paige woke to feed Rose and found Yates awake too, watching them from the doorway. "Could not sleep?" she asked. "Did not want to miss anything." He came to sit beside her on the rocking chair. "I keep thinking about how different my life would be if you had not moved in next door, if Anew had not insisted on those dinners, if I had been too afraid to tell you how I felt. But you did, and I did, and here we are." "Here we are," he echoed, kissing her temple. "With everything I never knew I needed." Rose grew. She learned to smile, to laugh, to grab at anything within reach. Paige went back to work part-time, and Yates adjusted his schedule to be home more. They traded off feedings and diaper changes and walks around the neighborhood, Rose bundled in a carrier against Yates's chest. The people of Millbrook watched Rose grow up. They saw her take her first steps in the library. They heard her first words at the coffee shop. She became the town's collective child, adored and spoiled by everyone who knew her parents' story. On Rose's 2nd birthday, Paige found out she was pregnant again. "You work fast," she teased Yates. "Can you blame me? Look how the first one turned out." Their son was born that winter. They named him James after a character in Paige's favorite book. He was calmer than Rose had been, content to watch the world with serious eyes. Rose was immediately smitten, trying to share her toys, patting his head gently. "Gentle," Paige reminded her constantly. "He is little." "Baby," Rose said proudly, like she had invented him herself. Life became beautifully chaotic. 2 children under 3, jobs they loved, a community that felt like family. There were hard days, sleepless nights, moments when Paige felt like she was drowning. But Yates was always there, steady and strong, picking up the slack when she needed him. "We are doing okay, right?" she asked one night after they had finally gotten both kids to sleep. "We are doing better than okay. We are happy." Yates pulled her onto the couch beside him. "You are happy, right? So happy. Sometimes I still cannot believe this is my life." "Believe it. You deserve every bit of this. You survived, Paige. You fought for your life, you told the truth, and you built something beautiful. Never forget that." 5 years after the trial, Agent Chen called. "Just checking in," she said. "How are things?" "Good. Really good. 2 kids, stable job, great husband. I almost forget sometimes why I came here in the first place." "That is exactly what we hoped for. For what it is worth, you were one of the successes." Most people in witness protection never find what you found. I got lucky. You got brave. There is a difference. After they hung up, Paige stood in her living room looking at the photos on the wall. Her wedding, Rose as a newborn, James taking his first steps. Yates laughing in the garden, covered in dirt. A life assembled from pieces but no less real for its origins. Eleanor passed away when Rose was 5. It was peaceful in her sleep, the way she would have wanted. The whole town mourned. Paige and Yates organized the funeral, and it felt like saying goodbye to the grandmother Paige had never had. She gave us each other, Yates said at the service. She made us family, and I will always be grateful for her kindness. They bought Eleanor's house, could not stand the thought of strangers living there. Rose and James played in the yard where Paige and Yates had first admitted their feelings. It felt like the circle closing again, history preserved. Rose started school. She was bright and curious, always reading, always asking questions. James was quieter, preferring to build things, spending hours with blocks and puzzles. They were so different but fiercely protective of each other. They have your heart, Yates told Paige, watching them play. And your strength. They have the best of both of us. They will be okay. On their 10th anniversary, Yates took Paige back to the overlook where he had proposed. The kids were with a babysitter. It was just them, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. 10 years, he said. Feels like yesterday and forever at the same time. Best decade of my life, mine too, and we have so many more ahead of us. He kissed her softly. Thank you for saying yes, for choosing me, for building this life with me. Thank you for seeing me, for not running when I told you the truth. For loving me through everything. They stood together as the sun dipped below the horizon, and Paige felt complete. She had come to Millbrook running from death, expecting to hide, to disappear. Instead, she had found life, love, a future that stretched out bright and full of possibility. Sometimes, late at night, she would lie awake and think about the girl she had been in Portland. Scared and alone, covered in blood that was not hers. She would think about the choice she made to run, to testify, to survive. And she would feel grateful for her own courage, for the marshals who protected her, for the small town that took her in. But mostly she felt grateful for Yates, for the man who had his own secrets, his own reasons for hiding, who had looked at her and seen not a victim or a project but a partner. An equal, someone worth loving. She rolled over in bed, finding him awake beside her. Could not sleep, he asked, just thinking. About what? How lucky I am, how much I love you. How glad I am that witness protection placed me in a small town, and my new neighbor turned out to be a billionaire with secrets too. Yates laughed, the sound warm in the darkness. Best coincidence of my life. Mine too. He pulled her close, and she listened to his heartbeat, steady and sure. This was home. Not the house, not the town, but this man and the children sleeping down the hall and the life they had built together from nothing. She had been a witness to violence, to death, to the worst of humanity. But she had also witnessed love, transformation. The way two broken people could find each other and become whole. And that, Paige thought as she drifted off to sleep in her husband's arms, was the truest thing she knew. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of their bedroom, the same golden light that had greeted her when she first arrived in Millbrook all those years ago. Rose's laughter echoed from downstairs, followed by James's quieter giggles. Yates stirred beside her, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. "Another day," he murmured. "Another beautiful day," Paige corrected. They went downstairs together to find their children making a magnificent mess in the kitchen, attempting to make breakfast. Flour dusted the counters, and there were eggshells in places eggshells should never be, but their faces were so proud that Paige could not bring herself to care. "We made pancakes," Rose announced. Well, we tried. Dad needs to help with the stove part. I appreciate the effort, Yates said, ruffling her hair. Let us finish these together. As they cooked and laughed and cleaned up the chaos, Paige looked around at her family, at the life that had seemed impossible when she first fled Portland. She thought about Tony Salvator, locked away forever, his power broken. She thought about Agent Chen, who had given her a second chance. She thought about Alina, watching over them from wherever she was now. But mostly she was present right here in this moment. Her husband flipping pancakes with theatrical flair while their son cheered him on. Her daughter setting the table, counting out 4 plates, 4 forks, 4 napkins. The coffee brewing, filling the kitchen with its rich aroma. The dog begging for scraps. The absolutely ordinary, beautifully mundane details of a life well lived. This was what she had fought for. This was what made it all worthwhile. After breakfast, they decided to go to the library. Rose wanted to return her books and pick out new ones, and James needed something about dinosaurs, his current obsession. As they walked down the familiar streets of Millbrook, people waved and called out greetings. They stopped to chat with the owner of Mountain Brew, admired the new flowers outside the hardware store, promised to come to the town barbecue next weekend. At the library, Paige unlocked the door with the same key she had been given on her first day. So much had changed since then, but the library remained constant. Books and stories and the quiet promise of escape, of knowledge, of connection. This is your mom's favorite place in the world, Yates told the kids as they scattered to find their books. Besides home, Paige corrected. And besides wherever you are. Sap. You love it. He kissed her, quick and sweet, and she thought about how many times they had kissed in this library. How it had been witness to their entire story, from strangers to neighbors to something more. Rose came running back with an armful of books about horses. James had found a massive encyclopedia of prehistoric creatures. They checked them out, Paige stamping the cards with the same satisfaction she always felt, helping people find the stories they needed. As they walked home, Rose holding Yates's hand and James holding Paige's, the afternoon sun warm on their faces, Paige felt the last ghost of her past finally release its grip. She was not running anymore. She was not hiding. She was simply living, fully and completely, in the life she had chosen and the love she had found. Yates looked over at her, and she saw her own contentment reflected in his eyes. They had both come to Millbrook seeking refuge. They had both been carrying secrets and shame. But together they had built something that neither could have created alone, a home, a family, a future. And that, Paige knew with absolute certainty, was the happily ever after she had never dared to dream of. Not perfect, but real. Not easy, but worth every moment. Not the ending she had expected, but the one she had earned. They reached their house, Rose and James racing ahead to let Scout out of the backyard. Yates squeezed Paige's hand, and she squeezed back, a silent conversation in a language only they spoke. I love you. I love you too, thank you. Always. They went inside together, into the warmth and chaos and joy of their life, and closed the door behind them. Outside, Millbrook continued its peaceful rhythm, the small town that had saved them both. Inside, a family gathered in the kitchen, talking about dinosaurs and horses and what to make for dinner. And Paige Dawson Lawson, once a witness to violence, now a witness to love, smiled and thought that there was nowhere else in the world she would rather be. This was home. This was happiness. This was everything.